Hey guys, I'm Wayne Santos,
I'm Melanie Emile.
and this is CGM Retro Flash Focus. And as you may have guessed, this is retro, so we're going to be covering. Man, I haven't seen this in a long time. It's like the Atari Jaguar, 1993. So yeah, let's get into it.
I've never seen
Okay,
the
it's like
Atari
okay, yeah.
Jaguar.
First of all right. It's like I want you to just gaze on the majesty of this control. Have you
not a
ever
controller.
seen a controller that looks like this?
That's not a controller.
It's like yeah, okay, so yeah, we've got it's like the D-pad. This was before the era of analog sticks. So we've got the D-pad. You've got your pause and option. You've got 3 buttons instead of 2 or 4.
You've got a whole bunch of
Yeah.
other buttons.
And then after that, yes, you've got like this telephone style keypad
Yes.
where you could actually get like plastic overlays which were included in the game, and you just stuck them on here, and then just it was basically like you're just your hotbar.
I
for,
wonder why
assigning
this
special
didn't
functions. So-
sell well.
Well, I mean, it's like it didn't control that great, and like here, put
Okay,
it in your hand. Like, how does
Oh,
that
yeah.
feel? Can you see yourself holding that for like several hours or?
No,
Okay,
that's a lot of buttons.
yeah. Now, yeah, this thing is it makes me happy and sad at the same time looking at it. I mean, it's like when I was a kid, my very first console was an Atari 2600, so I have a lot of fond memories of Atari. It's like the Atari 400, through 1200 series of computers, the Atari 5200, and then finally in 1993. To compete with Sega and Sony with the Super Nintendo and the Genesis, Atari came out with the Jaguar.
Didn't go well.
No, it tanked. It just did not sell very well at all. One of the reasons for that was the fact that they had some really, really sketchy marketing. The actual advertising campaign for this, and I remember this distinctly because it was a huge controversy afterwards, was do the math. And the reason that they said do the math was because they were claiming that the Jaguar was supposed to be the world's first 64-bit gaming console.
Okay.
Except that wasn't actually true.
So if you did the math, you'd find out that wasn't true.
See, yeah, if you did the math, you would find out that this thing had 32-bit processors, including a GPU and all that, but it had a 64-bit data path. So it was actually capable of like accepting up to 64 bits of information, but it wasn't actually capable of sending out that much. But because of that 64-bit data path, they were like, it's a 64-bit machine, do the math, it's more powerful than the other stuff. The only problem with that, though, is that this was in 1993, and then in 1995, the PlayStation came out,
Yeah.
and the PlayStation was a much more powerful system, despite the fact that it was not a so-called 64-bit machine.
Yeah.
So you had a lot of people who were looking at this thing going, it's like, well, why is this supposed to be a 64-bit machine when this PlayStation thing over here is just like completely blowing it away?
Well, see, I was a gamer in 1993, and I wouldn't have known about 64 bits and all that stuff. I just wanted to play games.
Yeah.
I was pretty young.
And this really did not have a lot of games.
I don't remember this.
Okay, but
I
it
don't
did,
remember the
no,
advertisements.
but there was Tempest. There was Tempest. It's like
remember
okay, it's like yeah, Tempest. I played Tempest. I loved. It's just like this is one of those Atari staples. Tempest first
It's
came out in
true.
the arcades in the '80s. It had vector graphics. It was like psychedelic and totally amazing. And then they go and they produce Tempest 2000 for the Jaguar, and it's one of the few games at the time which was a mind-blowing experience. My experience is not going to be the same as everybody else's, but the very first time that I played this game, it was on my parents' 50-inch projection TV.
Wow.
So
back in the 90s.
yeah, back in the 90s. So yeah, it was a projection TV, so obviously the image quality wasn't that great, but yeah, playing a video game on a 50-inch TV with so-called 64-bit do the math graphics and just crazy techno rave music. Oh yeah, you have to read the back of this. Okay. And I quote, once your neurotransmitters get a taste of the hypnotic rhythms of 100% pure techno rave, you'll be hooked. Only in the 90s could that kind of advertising copy seriously go on the back of a box and actually seriously be taken by the audience, which was me, because it's like because it was the 90s. But it's like yeah, I sat down, I played it, it was amazing. There was also Aliens versus Predator. And
Oh, really?
yeah, the Atari Jaguar was one of the earliest video game consoles to get an Aliens versus Predator game. It was a first-person shooter.
And you love aliens.
It was good.
Oh.
It was actually good. it was really struggling on the Jaguar hardware. I mean, it's like, it was really pushing it. So yeah, there were some serious performance issues, but the actual gameplay was really solid. So
I'm kind of surprised about it.
yeah, so you could run around as the humans, you could run around as the predators, you could run around as the aliens, and everybody just raved about that game and said it was one of the few must-own titles for the system, and they were right. So between Tempest and Aliens versus Predator, there were a couple of decent games. The rest of the lineup, it really let it down. There were like awful fighting games that tried to mimic Mortal Kombat, and they were just terrible. There were other fighting games that tried to mimic the 3D polygonal games of the time. Those were also like, just uniformly bad. And then they tried to cash in on the whole CD drive craze. There was a Jaguar CD expansion. It looked like a toilet bowl, and it just sat right on top of this thing. Maybe someday we'll actually get this thing and put it on here and show you guys. But yeah, it basically turned the Jaguar into what looked like a toilet for babies. And, it's like, honestly, a lot of people said that that's all it was good for. So yeah, let's just jump in here and like,
Show me your childhood.
I'm going to show you Tempest.
Yeah.
Because you need to see Tempest. So let's check out Tempest. Okay, so here we are with the design credits, which were not made by game developers. Take note that they were made by Tempest dudes, as it says at the top, because this is the 90s, and if you're a dude, you're much more extreme than just a plain old vanilla game developer. So okay, let's get into this. Press fire to play. Does that mean the C button? It does mean the C button. Okay, let's just go with Tempest 2000. And there we go, the graphics are melting towards you because that is leet and techno-rave and psychedelic. One thing that I actually did not mention when I was reading out this box copy is that they refer to this as Meltovision.
Meltovision.
Meltovision. So we're actually watching Meltovision.
So it melts your eyes and it melts your ears with the sound.
And it melts your brain.
Exactly.
So here we go. Yes, our brains are about to be melted.
So an entire generation was melted.
Yeah, exactly. So there we go. Let's just get into it. It's like my only regret is that we can't hear.
I was gonna say
awesome
I regret that we cannot hear the music. I want to be melted in every
techno is
aspect.
playing, and there we go. It's Tempest. You're wandering around, and you've got to avoid those things. Except that I did a very bad job of doing it. But I mean, it's like you can see what's going on here. This is just classic Tempest. It's just that they decided to make it slightly more 3D. It's like it's using polygonal technology, or as much as they had polygonal technology back in the 90s. And this is all you do. You just, it's like you just run circles around.
Well, technically, you run triangles.
Yeah, you run triangles or circles or squares around this thing. It's like, unfortunately, this controller is really not the greatest for something like this. I mean, the arcade original actually had you using a paddle controller of some sort. But, it's like this one you're just using the D-pad, which is actually not that ideal. I think I might have actually preferred an analog stick, but this is before.
You're so adjusted to analog sticks now.
I am, yeah. I mean, I've been playing for a while now, and I started with a traditional just one-button joystick and button setup with the Atari 2600, but now I'm so used to the responsiveness of analog sticks that it's really difficult for me to get back into the groove of this, which is why I'm playing this game so badly. It's like, look at this, I'm just dying repeatedly over and over again. I've already got the game over sign. I mean, part of that is just because this is a traditional hardcore game. The guys who made this game had a lot of respect for the actual Tempest, license. So it is not an easy game to play. It's still working under the assumption that maybe you were a hardcore gamer that played religiously in arcades, back in the 80s and 90s, and that your reflexes are still up to snuff. But yeah, for me, it's been a while since I played just a classic arcade shoot 'em up like this. So I'm still pretty rusty. I mean, it's like, I suppose if you left me alone with this game for an hour so that I could get my bearings again, I could probably not embarrass myself. Yeah.
It all come back.
I could probably not embarrass myself then, but it's like as is. It's like, oh well, okay, I guess a few minutes practice helped. I'm doing slightly better this time. But I mean, yeah, it's slowly coming back. But I mean, it's like, really, what else can you say about this game? You're at the edge of the tunnel and you're shooting at things that come at you. I mean, it's like, it's so weird because now when I see this kind of setup, I automatically think to myself rock band or guitar player, and I should be playing music right now.
Do you need rock band blitz?
Oh yeah, exactly. It's like rock band blitz also rolls a lot. You can just compare the way rock band blitz goes with this, and you can clearly see the roots. It's very, very obvious that Tempest decided to pull its out all kinds of tunnel running. Oh my god, I actually got through. I got through the first level. So now I will just sit here and play it for like the next 6 hours, wishing that I were on drugs or something, I guess, since that's sort of the way it was meant to be played. Or, you know, that since you guys probably don't want to watch me shooting things in the tunnel, you know, we can start wrapping this thing up. Because this is the game, kids! This is how we played games in the 90s. There was just one simple game mechanic that went on forever. So, yeah, Tempest, 2000, played in 2013, with, you know, Days of Future Past. Wow.